Hey gang, it's your old buddy Platt. Today I want to introduce you to my new video series, 1 Gallon Brewing. So let's go. So today I want to start off this new video series. It's going to be called 1 Gallon Brewing. I'm going to try to keep this as short as possible, but you know me, I get a little long-winded. So the idea behind this series is I've been wanting to get back and do some home brewing. You know, I've made different meads and, you know, pulque and other things like that. Just haven't gotten around to brewing beer in a while. But I had a discussion the other day with someone who had home brewed for a while and then quit. Part of the reason was they do 5-gallon batches. They said it just took up a lot of time, space, effort, this, that, and the other. And I told them that I really like doing 1-gallon batches. And we kind of talked about the concept for a little bit. And like I said, I've been thinking about doing some home brewing, and I thought this would be a perfect excuse to do a video series on 1-gallon brewing. If you're new to home brewing, if you're thinking about getting to it, I really advise that route. Just, you know, just for cost, space. One of the big things I tell people is if you're going to make mistakes, make them small. And 1 gallon of bad beer is a lot better than 5 gallons of bad beer. So that's kind of the idea behind this. Now, what the plan is, and I'm emphasizing this is just the plan, I want to do about one of these videos a month, roughly, and we're going to go through just different styles of beer. I want to produce pretty much all the major styles of beer. One of my first video series when I started this channel years ago was a beer style series where I just talked about all the different styles, Bocks, Hefeweizens, stouts, porters, what have you, and I thought, well, this would be great to now go back and make those different styles. Because some people say, well, all right, I know a Bock is darker, but why? Well, I'll make a Bock and you'll see the darker malts. Or an IPA is really hoppy. Well, I'll make an IPA and you're like, oh, well, that's a lot of hops in there, no wonder. So just that's kind of the base idea to this video series. As always, I'd love to hear feedback from you guys. So today we're going to start off with possibly the simplest type of brews. Real quick, most of these brews are going to be all grain. We may do a couple of partial mashes if there's like a lesson or something to learn, or you know, a technique to do. We're definitely going to have some beers where we add what's called adjuncts or other fermentables to them. But for the most part, these are going to be all grain brews. And again, the 1 gallon size, it's just a lot easier to execute than doing a 5-gallon or, you know, half barrel all grain brew. This particular brew is going to be what's called a smash ale. You won't find this at your liquor store, but smash stands for single malt and single hops. Most of the brews, especially again when you're doing all grain and in commercial settings, you'll have like a base malt, and then you'll have other grains added, other malted barleys that will bring in different colors, different flavors. And the same for the hops. Even though there are some beer styles that one style of hop kind of goes through the whole time. Most of the time you'll have like maybe a hop that's real good for bitterness and one different hop for aroma. But this time we're just using one hop. That particular hop is going to be Amarillo. Amarillo is a real popular hop in the IPA world. It's got a little spice to it, a little citrusy note to it, and it's just real popular in those bigger IPAs, your juicy IPAs, what have you. So that's what we're going with that. And if I didn't say, the malt we're going with is a Pale Ale Malt. So with that being said, let's brew a gallon of beer. All right, gang, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take 1 gallon of water and bring it up to 160 degrees. I've got 2 pounds of our Pale Ale Malt. It's been milled or crushed. You can generally get your homebrew shop to do it. If not, if you ever mill at home, just fine. But we have two pounds of that, and we're going to go ahead and add it to our 160 degree water. This right here is what we'll refer to as the mash in. And we're going to stir all the grains in. Make sure you don't want any dry pockets or dough balls or anything. You want water to get completely through that grain to work its way through. We're going to turn off our heat. We're going to want to let this sit for about 60 minutes at around 150-ish to 155 degrees. What goes on at that temperature is it kind of kicks in, and the enzymes in the barley to start turning those starches into sugar, which is what we need for the yeast. This mashing process takes roughly 60 minutes. You'll want to check on the temperature regularly. You want to, like I said, I've killed the temperature. We set our water temperature a little high, so when we add the grains, it kind of cools it off. And we're just going to put a lid on. We'll check on it every once in a while. We're going to let this go for 60 minutes, and then we'll come back to do the mash out. Alright gang, so it's been roughly an hour, and our grains have been sitting in our water. At this point, we're going to do what's called a mash out. We're going to raise the temperature of our grain water up to 170 degrees, kind of prepare the grains to get rinsed. So I'm going to start the stove back up. While I'm heating that water, I've got another 3 quarts of water heating up right now. We're going to use this water. We're heating it up to 170 degrees real quick. We're going to use this water to rinse these grains. We want to extract all the sugars as much as possible out of them. So we're going to end up rinsing the grains. Also, it's going to give us enough water to reach our final volume of beer. So let's get both these up to 170, and then we'll come back to rinse the grains. Alright gang, so we got our water temperatures up to 170 degrees. And the next thing we're going to do is rinse our grain. First, we're going to dump our grain and water from this container to another container. You want kind of a mesh, kind of sieve or colander, whatever you have at home that's handy, small enough that you can keep the grains, separated from the liquid. I'll turn off my heat. Wear your gloves. Be careful, kids. This water's hot. We're just going to dump all that grain. You want to get, you want to get a spoon or a spatula to kind of get all that grain out. This right here should show you why 1 gallon is real convenient, because imagine doing this with 5. It's just, it's just something you're just not going to be able to do at that size. So what ends up happening is you either need, different equipment, friends, what have you. That's why, again, I always kind of say the 1 gallon route is the easiest. Now I'm going to go ahead and kill the heat on my other water. And what we're going to do, because I still have some grain in there, I want to get all that out because we're trying to get as much efficiency as possible. I'm going to take this 3 quarts and dump into here. And then we're going to dump in here. This part is called the sparge. We're just rinsing those grains to get all that sugar out of there. When you get a little further, a little deeper into this hobby, you'll learn that there's various ways to do this sparge. Some people have a little spray. Some people do this over a spoon, so it kind of dilutes out. There's something called Vorlauf, watering. We're just starting real basic right now. So now we've got all our liquid in there. We've rinsed our grains. We're going to throw her on the burner and bring her up to a boil. So let's come back for the boil. Alright gang, we're getting ready to come to a boil in our beer, or at this point technically it's called wort because we don't have actual alcohol yet. Our wort is about to come to a boil. We're going to do a 60-minute boil. This is kind of standard in home brewing. When you get further along in the process, there may be some beers and recipes that go up to 90 minutes for a boil, but standard is 60 minutes. What's going to happen in that hour? 3 different things. First, bringing it to boil, we're sanitizing everything, so we're not worried about any microbials. Second, we're going to lose water volume because that water is going to boil off, and we're going to get down to our gallon of wort. We're also going to really concentrate the flavors and concentrate the sugars. Also, while this hour-long boil is going on, we're going to add our hop additions. Various times of the boil, you get different things out of the hops. And so we're going to have 3 different hop additions throughout this boil. One takes care of bitterness, the other takes care of flavor, the other takes care of hop aroma. So that's why this is done. So we're getting ready to come to a boil. Oh, real quick before we start, like so we're about ready to boil, you want to make sure there's plenty of headspace in whatever pot you use, because when it starts to boil, you can get a boil over. Also, when you add the hops, you can also get a boil over. And we just start a boil, and just give it a quick stir. A lot of times I'll bring down the boil. Some people will mist a little water on top to kind of knock down the foam, but give her a little swirl, and we are off to a boil. Our first hop addition is going to be 1/2 ounce of our Amarillo hops. Whoa! And there you go. That's why you have to keep an eye on this stuff. It can flare up on you real quick. All right. And we're back on. All right, I'll see you guys in 45 minutes for our next hop addition. All right, gang, so we're about 45 minutes into the boil, and you might tell we have a little ring around there. We're starting to reduce our volume. Now it's time for our next hop addition, the flavor hop addition. We're putting in 1/4 ounce of our Amarillo hops. And you might see we got a slight little boil up. Just give her a quick stir. And then we're going to let this boil for another 15 minutes, come back to do our last hop addition and to flame out. All right, guys, so we're 60 minutes into the boil. We're at the end. We're going to do our last hop addition, another quarter ounce of our Amarillo hops. This addition, adding hops at this point of the boil, adds a little bit of aroma to it. So when you put your nose in that beer, that big IPA or whatever, it's from this part of the boil. Well, now that we got our hop addition in, we're going to go ahead and turn off our heat, and now it's time to chill our wort. All right, this right here might be the best part about doing 1 gallon brews, is chilling down your wort. You want to cool your wort down as soon as possible to avoid any kind of bacteria or any kind of infection, and so you want to do it quickly. Well, at a 5-gallon volume, it's just going to be hard. The physics is against you. But the 1 gallon size, your average 3-gallon stock pot or whatever, you could throw in your sink, do a quick little ice bath, and it should reach temperature. We're shooting for about 75 degrees fairly quickly. Anything larger than this, and it's just going to be too hard to cool that much liquid that fast. And you usually need some other equipment, something like a wort chiller, which is more money, time, equipment, what have you. So brewing these 1 gallon batches, you can get your wort down to a proper temperature real quick. So we're going to let this cool and come back to wrap up. Well, all right, gang, I've got our wort chilled. I did a quick hydrometer reading. We came out to 1.050, which means this ferments out fully. We should be 6.5% alcohol by volume. I went ahead and pitched our yeast. I used a Safale US 05 yeast. This is good, just standard ale yeast I've used in a lot of my will it ferment videos, stuff like that. It's not overly sensitive to temperature fluctuations, stuff like that. It's probably the yeast I'm going to use for a lot of these standard ales. Obviously, when we get to more experimental brews or different brews, like a Russian Imperial Stout, barley wines, we'll change up some yeast. Lagers, obviously, I'll use a different yeast. 2 to 3 grams per gallon is about right for what you pitch. These packets are about 11 grams, so a quarter, or roughly a quarter of the packet goes in here. Where do we go from here as far as this goes? We'll allow it in the primary fermenter for 2 weeks. We'll rack off into another one, allow it in secondary for 2 weeks. Then we'll go ahead and bottle, and we'll bottle condition. That's where we carbonate in the bottle for about 1 week. So in 5 weeks, we'll have a beer ready to drink. Because this is the first beer I've brewed and beer video I've done in a long time, what I want to do in the description section below is leave some videos. This is meant, again, for newer brewers, people maybe just trying all grain for the first time or just starting the whole brewing process. What I do here, you know, is not necessarily going to win you a big homebrewing competition or whatever. We'll work our way to that point. But anyway, I'll leave some videos down below about bottling your homebrew sanitation, homebrew safety. Just, you know, kind of help you if there's something you weren't sure about in the video. Maybe those videos will help you. Well, I hope you liked this video. If you did, please subscribe down below. Also, please like the video because it lets YouTube know we're putting out good content. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or ideas about this whole series, please leave them in the comment section, or you can always contact me on the Twitter page. Well, until next time, bottoms up.